It's Rob Collette from Performance Hi. It's Rob Collette from Performance Hi. It's Rob Collette from Performance. Oh dear. Has it gone wrong already? Oh my goodness. This is an interesting start, I have to say. I realise I'm much higher than I meant to be as well. There we go, that's a little better. Hello, my name is Rob, and I'm from that channel Performance Check, which is usually on YouTube, but today I'm making my Twitch debut, as it were. If you're watching along, give me a little shout in the chat so I know who I'm talking to, because today I'm going to be sharing with you quite a lot, hopefully. I'm going to be talking about some prep that I did for a long-running game of Dungeons & Dragons that I ran last year. I'm also going to be talking about what I'm going to be doing on Twitch in the future. And hopefully just having a bloody good laugh. I don't know why I said it like that. Let's have a quick look at what I've got lined up somewhere. Yeah, so like I say, we're going to talk about some prep and we're going to talk about some stuff that I've got lined up. I would advise, for those watching or listening, that this is going to be a very bare bones production this evening. So there isn't going to be a massive amount on stream, as in on screen, sorry, to look at. So I won't be offended if you have this on in the background and you're doing other stuff. This will primarily be something to listen to, but if there's going to be something that I put on the screen, because there'll be one or two things, I'll give you a heads up. All right, but feel free just to have this on in the background whilst you do other things, unless you are gripped to these to these visuals going on right here. Yeah, we'll see. We have Sky Laszlo, who says, "Hey Rob, hello. You are officially the first person who has ever said hello to me on Twitch. So congratulations. I don't have anything for you. I wish I did. I wish I could share a beer with you. I'm drinking the Brewdog this evening. Going to enjoy a few. It's Friday night. Okay, it's Friday night. We're going to do a little bit of storytelling, a little bit of back and forth about D&D. Have a nice beer as well. I like these guys as well. They claim that every Brewdog that you buy, I was going to say drink, but every Brewdog that you buy, they give money to dog shelters and they also plant trees. What better reason is there to enjoy a nice beverage? I didn't plan to talk about beer, so let's just get on with it. I've got a few things lined up, and some of them I'm just going to read. Straight up just read. And, pardon me, and some of them I'm going to just look at and talk about. Because with my prep, for example, because I want to talk about the prep of the campaign, and the notes that I, as a dungeon master, use to run the game, they're kind of all over the place. When I did, some of you who are if you are familiar with my D&D channel Performance Check on YouTube, if you're not, please go and check it out. But some of you may be familiar with some of the videos on there, and 3 of them are called the Campaign Journal, and that is where I began telling the story that I'm going to hopefully continue this evening. How far we get, we shall discover soon enough. But yes, effectively, that's the story that I'm going to continue tonight. It proved to be a considerable amount of work to just tell the story and learn it and then talk to camera about it. So I thought if I just look at the prep and then just sort of, it might actually be better if I'm a bit more candid about it rather than trying to tell the story in a produced kind of way. Also, that was a significant amount of effort that I just didn't have the time to put in to make those videos. So that's kind of where we're going to go from. But I think it would be a really good idea for me to read something. Something that I wanted to use initially as a prologue, but I thought it would be a little bit alienating given it was one of the players' first game of D&D. I should explain, this game occurred when lockdown was at its height, and we wanted to introduce a friend of ours to Dungeons and Dragons, because it was a way for us each, for us to kind of connect and to introduce him to the game. It was kind of it was a very, very lengthy and bold excuse just to get him to try and play Dungeons and Dragons, because we did try and convince him for a while, and we did just the more we tried, the more we just sounded like lunatics. He'd never really played before. Like, no, you gotta love this game. You imagine entire worlds, like you put on characters and you put on voices and you go on adventures, and he was just like, okay, you sound like a crazy person. Which is true. I did. Absolutely did. Can't deny it. But, anyway, all that to say, it was a good excuse for us to get him into D&D. And the point is, I didn't want to start a campaign with lengthy exposition. You just want to get them up and running the game. So I decided to not make this a prologue. But considering I'm just reading and talking to you guys, I think it would be a fitting way to begin the campaign journal, or continue the campaign journal, I should say, and we'll see how we go from there. I'm just making sure that everything is going well. Can someone just let me know if they can hear me? That would be really helpful, actually. I'm just very, very paranoid that just for a moment if someone could just just let me know that you can hear me. Hi, adventurer, says Sir Robert in the flesh. Good to see some more performance check. And he says, yes, can hear you. Thank you very much. That's put my nerves at rest. Thank you very much, Hi, adventurer. I'm very, very pleased to have you in the flesh as well, Hi, adventurer, on this most hallowed of hallowed on this stream. I wish I could stop talking out my arse for a second, but guess what? I'm going to talk out my arse for a few hours now, so just bear with. So, without further ado, this is the prologue to a campaign called Beyond the Veil. And this bit of writing is called Nothing Gold Can Stay. Here we go. At the foot of the matron tree there lay a throne of twisted roots, crowned with hanging petals and weeping lilies. Upon it, over steepled fingertips, Solathon, the Lord of Summer, scowled with burning eyes of unyielding sunlight. His gleaming face was framed with a wild mane of auburn locks, banded and braided with flowers of elemas, hibiscus, and mallee, now browning and wilting at the turn of the winds. Upon his brow there rested a wreath of rubies, knotted with flowing threads of tempered gold and star silver, framed by the tall and pointed ears of his kin, an Eladrin. The court of seasons basked in the fiery blood orange of the setting sun, its dwindling rays catching the armour of the court guard, standing vigil beneath mighty pillars of stone yew. The sunset drew shadows long and deep to the very length of the hall that lay open beneath a crimson sky. Rays of shimmering gold clung to the outer shape of Orn Lothra, the matron tree that towered over the court where the throne nestled, laying amidst mighty roots atop a flight of crooked steps. Towards it came a herald, with hurried steps that echoed from the great stone archway at the hall's entrance. In ceremonial garb he moved across the enamelled flooring from the foundation of the realm to the foot of the throne's ascent. Removing his helm to clutch it under his arm, he fell to kneeling before his lord's blazing gaze and kissed the ground at the base of the winding climb to the seat of seasons. My lord, I bring tidings. Burning eyes narrowed. Solathon's hand that languidly rested upon the throne gave a beckon for the message to be given. My loyal brothers from the Vale Gate received visitation from a rider. His steed was Anlusion, the pale stallion. He has returned. The herald darted a glimpse from the patterned floor up the stone steps to the Lord of Summer, eyes growing wide as he looked upon him. Graceful poise, once rested, was now grasped and quivering with barely contained fury, as this news washed over the Lord in a wave of elemental anger. The very sight of this reaction was like a fiery spear to the heart. Through perfect golden teeth, at last Solathon growled. "He is to be brought before me. Return to the Vale Gate and give word to admit this returning rider. He is to be kept under full scrutiny while he is delivered to the court to answer for this transgression." The herald summoned a final shred of courage and addressed his lord once more, a lowly figure kneeling before a rupturing dam. "Forgive me, Lord. He did not wait for the gates to open. Necurian has come." As if summoned with his name spoken, a tall figure now stood at the far length of the hall. No clue was given for how or when he had arrived there. Before the threshold of the great archway he was akin to a statue, still as if witnessing a bygone era come and pass. With warlike bearing he was suddenly on the move across the hall, steps matched by the sound of aged and elegant armour. Necurian moved towards the throne, announced by the call of distant yet fast approaching thunder. A long shock of moonlight silver hair fell to his shoulders, framing a strong and perfectly fair face, but for two scars raked over his pallid flesh that crossed lip and jaw. Sat beneath a gaunt and jutting brow line, his eyes gleamed with a sharp sheen of rain cloud, shot through with bolts of incandescent blue lightning. Dying light danced upon his interlocking plate as he approached, its ornate filigree depicting patterns of war and magic. It told a story, and not a pleasant one. A battle-torn cloak drifted in his wake, and it flicked at his arrival at the bottom of the stairs, bringing with him a ripple through the air that pressed at the very branches of all Lothra. The matron tree behind Solathon, the Lord of Summer, was rooted. Like the matron tree behind him, Solathon, the Lord of Summer, was rooted. His outstretched grasp clawed upon the arms of his throne, ready to pounce like a stalking blink beast. The herald shrank grovelling into the corner of the hall, bright tears brimming as he fled from the heat of his lord's presence. The Eladrin both stared at each other in the silence that descended like a curtain of rain, dousing the court in the held scorn of an era. It was Solathon that spoke first, the Lord's words hissing like frying wax. "How does it come to pass that Necurion, scion of the Fall, stands before my throne more than a century too soon? What banal treachery leads you to break oath and cheat sacrament? You are neither permitted nor welcome here. My reign is at its height, roaring with the fires of a sun at its zenith. A bright summer, not yet infirm to the pale creeping of your line and its influence." Necurian stared up at Solathon as if searching for something behind the Lord's animalistic visage. Like a crack of thunder his reply came, his scarred features lit by the crackling spark in his eyes. "A war came to pass, Solathon, and that it did. An era of struggle and loss has swept by in the blink of an eye. our people ventured forth in preemptive defence of our borders, to strike at enemies that would threaten to tear away the veil itself. And all the while, the Lord of Summer sits highly upon his twisted throne and plays at wrath, while our birthright is supplanted from beneath us. It comes to pass that I have returned from war, to find another waged and lost at our very gates. It is not treachery nor cheated sacrament that drives me to your throne, but duty to our lands that you have left abandoned. Solathon's golden teeth were bared in a devouring snarl, yet his eyes betrayed the merest glint of shock from his old rival's words. In an instant, the surprise was consumed by hot flames. Not in an era has a single soldier breached the veil, he spat. Nor indeed does any general possess the wits enough to find it. What are the lands beyond the veil? Nicurian pressed back. What are the lands that received our descendants so long ago? They have been besieged, with no response from the court. The Lord of Summer's face twisted into a sneer of revulsion and savage, humorless mirth. Besieged? This incursion you name arrived upon a mere 9 ships. Primitive savages barely capable of twisting fire and forging steel. Children blinking in the sun, too young to truly perceive the old and dangerous realm that surrounds them. They will not weather the perils of Varelian. They have weathered the perils enough to build a great city of stone, Nicurian interjected coldly. It rests upon the coastal ruins of our departed kin, watching over the screaming keys and holding vigil across the shore. The birthland of elven kind is beset by a torment from which little can survive. There they have dwelt and expanded for more than a century, and even now they continue to hew at the edges of the Ainalar. A century is a trifling thing, Solathon waved in dismissal. Not for humanity. The name was venomous on Nicurian's tongue. They are a scourge that flourishes beneath clouds of industry, and they sate themselves with undying and destructive conflict until all around them lies within ash, all in the blink of an eye. It is our vow to defend Varelian. You have failed her. I will not. The flowers within Solathon's auburn mane appeared to set alight. The Lord of Summer seethed like black-hearted fire amidst the deep silhouette of the matron tree. Summoned by the call of flame, the court guard moved as a crescent behind Nicurian, at a cautionary distance by the reach of shining spears. Ever you would hide your ambition behind words of duty, the Lord hissed. War has not changed you, Nicurian, save for its emboldening delusions of station that lie well beyond this time and your grasp. The ways of our kin are known. Not until the leaves of Orlothra fall will you hold regency here. Your covetous means have brought you to early ruin. You shall burn for this. Another sudden breeze appeared to emanate from Nicurian, setting the building fires before him to roll like a surf pulled back across sand. Orlothra seemed to groan, reaching at the pressing of the wind. Amidst the dancing light glaring from Solathon, he could make out a great scorch mark that ran high into the bark of its mighty trunk. It is your rule that shall bring ruin upon us all, Nicurian scowled, his voice rising tempestuously. You have indulged in petty fury and obsessed with self-conception of greatness and authority. The folly of your deeds lies scattered about you, yet still you lack the sight to see it. You rage in the shattered remains of your broken pact, and expose us like an open wound. Unfurled to those that seek to unmake us. Your bright summer hangs low, Solathon. You are only fit to watch it fade. The Lord of Summer was on his feet in an instant, royal bearing torn by a feral rage, a wild thing with a ravaging hunger of a great inferno. Tongues of flame licked from where he stood to surround the rival before him. Yet Nicurian stood still, shielded by the gale he had brought to bear. His hair caught high in a bolt of silver. A sorrowful pause came and went while the air stood still. Then a violent roar erupted from the red sky. Black clouds unfurled and howled around the matron tree in a vortex of elemental force. The storm had come. The air was filled with the gathering wings of thunder in flight, and whips of lightning cracked back against the Lord of Summer as rain began to fall. The Court of Seasons trembled under the impact, and amidst the torrent of rain it began to change, kaleidoscoping through a mirage of 1,000 colours. Incandescent shades washed through the rolling weather and over the Eladrin as their wills locked against each other. The court guard at Nicurian's back were dazzled and brought low by the blinding radiance, their eyes wide as time transformed before them. The light of years danced within their eyes as they beheld the struggle that echoed for a moment and an age. No longer was a century a trifling thing to Solathon. As swift as his rage had peaked, the Lord of Summer's fury was spent. His mighty flames that had surrounded Nicurian had been swept away by the storm of great calling. His bright face dimmed and was frozen in an outraged expression between surprise and horror as raindrops poured in the lines around his features. The court was quiet now, save for the barest whisper of a breeze. Where once it shone under bright rays of orange light, it now stood shimmering in the pale luminescence of twilight. The sunset finally falling behind the darkening horizon under the steady rainfall. Nicurian now stood directly before Solathon, his ascent up the stone steps unseen in the clash of elements. His storm-shot eyes looked upon the great branches above, his gaze like a whirling tempest deep with memory. Following Nicurian's gaze high and squinting through the downpour, Solathon beheld the great shadow of Orlothra, his wide eyes now merely embers, as he watched a single golden leaf fall gracefully from the matron tree's lofty heights, dancing between the Eladrin and coming to rest upon the twisted throne of seasons. With a strangled cry he fell to his hands and knees, clutching at the fallen leaf and holding it before him in betrayed grief. He slid from the steps and came to a rest upon the enamelled floor below. The flowers in his auburn mane were now charred and wilted. Scorched petals fell like ash from him to rest in the gathering pools. He now lay broken within. He gave a final fracturing cry to the skies above, before a final roll of primal thunder eclipsed him totally, and he was heard no more. Members of the court had appeared in silence. Eladrin of the Vale had been drawn by the din of contested power, and now they moved towards the throne in a funeral-like procession. They were cowled in mourning, yet harboured a bittersweet joy to bear witness to the passing of the era and a dawn of another. Now before the throne they could only see Nicurian. They knelt as he turned to face them, while golden leaves fell softly to the glassy black pool forming before the seat of seasons. Though fear had gripped his heart, the herald remembered his charge and rose to his feet, coming to stand at the foot of the steps, his voice calling through the rain in a verse of the Vale's tongue. Vale's first green as gold, her hardest hue to hold, her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Lothra sank to grief. So summer goes down this day, for nothing that is gold can stay. Hail Nicurian, once scion of the fall. Hail Nicurian, the Lord of Autumn. It was these words that carried into the heart of the Vale and rang out in a chorus of countless voices. Beneath the tempest of Nicurian's calling, and through a falling rain of golden leaves, the forces of the Feywild would empty onto the plain of Varelian, conducted from high upon the wings of thunder, and brought to bear against the new world of humanity. And that was a bit of writing called Nothing That Is Gold Can Stay. I need a drink. I'm going to have a drink of water, because that was a lot. Thank you very much, High Adventurer. Rob, I'd read your audiobook, such as galloping rhythm, crisp articulation, and compelling imagery. No one does game intros quite like you, mate. That is very kind. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, so this was actually what was going to be a prologue. As you can see, it's incredibly long and inappropriate to read at a gaming table. So, pardon me. So, I wanted that exposition in there because that effectively is explaining the beginning of the villain's arc. And the villain was called Nicurian, if you couldn't tell, and he was an Eladrin of the Feywild who ruled in the Court of Seasons. And the Court of Seasons is effectively the reigning Eladrin within the Feywild, and an age to them lasts a season, or a season for them lasts an age. And this was effectively the story of how Nicurian used Feywild trickery to speed up the last century of Solothon's reign so he could take over. Because Varelian, as we will learn, is contested ground, at least in the Eladrin's eyes, because humanity arrived in Varelian, which is a realm that the Eladrin guard from the Feywild, effectively. Humanity arrived 100 years ago, started setting up like a colony there. So in 100 years, obviously all this developed, and then the Eladrin came back and were like, hey, that this used to be all forest a moment ago, and now there's a city, a massive city built upon the remains of our cities when we withdrew to go to war. What gives? Hairy nerdy guy, very nice work, man. Nice to see the channel up and running. Thank you very much, my dear friend. Someone that I will be talking about a little bit later into the stream. Although, wow, that was... I should have maybe cut that down a little bit, because that was a lot of reading, and I still have an entire stream to do. So, yeah, that was what began... That's what began the campaign chronologically, but not what began the campaign in terms of the players. Now, I'm not going to fob you up by saying there are 3 videos on my YouTube channel that explain the beginning of the campaign, but there are 3 YouTube videos on my YouTube page that explain it. But I'll very briefly explain how the campaign began. And I will do that by looking at my notes. So, here we are. Varelian. Initially, the campaign, I like to name my campaigns, and it was initially going to be called Varelian and the Sunset Shores. And then I then changed it to Beyond the Veil because it just had a nicer ring to it, I think. So to begin, so we had three players. We had Dom, we had Mike, and we had Craig. And they each created characters. One of them, Mike, created a factotum, who, if you don't know, is basically someone who uses inspiration to get sudden and swift bonuses to whatever skill or action they wish to undertake. And later on, they can learn how to wield magic. They can wield any skill they like effectively. They are the master of all, a jack of all trades, but a master of none. And it's a very interesting class, and we'll go into the details of that in a little bit. We had Dom, who is playing, I should have said, Mike's character, the factotum, was called Alden. We also had... I remember their character names. Ashbourne Briar was Dom's character's name, and he was a druid. And we also, Craig's character, the newest player, played a samurai, which we didn't take because this is all, I should explain. This is all over the place, but we're using 3.5. So we wanted to have Craig wanted to be a samurai, and instead of using the samurai from the usual 3.5 materials, there was a book that was released called Oriental Adventures, and in that there is a alternate build for a samurai, which is really cool. And Carlos Ungolider is his name, by the way, Craig's character. He was a samurai that basically had like an emphasis on something called Ijatsu focus. For those of you that don't know, Ijatsu is, as I understand it, the word for when a samurai has his blade drawn like that, and then, in samurai films they each draw shing, and the Ijatsu focus is basically a way of allowing his character to attack from that position, and he gets certain bonuses from quick drawing. He's basically a quick draw specialist with the sword, effectively. I need a beer, my goodness. So those were the three characters. And the campaign began with them arriving in Varelian, which I will show you the map now, come to think of it. There we are. So, this is the land that was hinted at in that great big introductory reading. This is Varelian. And Varelian effectively lies upon a weak point between the Feywild and the Shadowfell. Varelian is on the material plane, and it acts as a bridge between the two. Hence why it's so important to the Eladrin. But the players don't know this. And the civilization of humans that have arrived here do not know this either. They are known as the Dominion. And the Dominion are the organised fragments of a fallen empire that have fled and then rebuilt. Now, how that empire toppled is a completely different story. All that you need to know is that this empire arrived here 100 years ago and founded Landfall, which is the big city right in the middle there. Wish I could put my cursor on it. I don't know if my cursor is actually visible. I don't actually know. But it's right in the middle. Landfall is right there. And the Dominion founded that city 100 years ago. And that is where our players are headed to. Now, each of them have a reason to come to the New World. This is effectively, like I tried to draw the analogy of the Mayflower heading from England and Europe to America. Now, I don't have the exact numbers, but I know it's a crazy amount of people died on that voyage. I explained pretty much straight up from the start of that game, you have to be insane to go on a voyage on a ship like this. Okay, there's scurvy, there's storms, and remember, this is not just the real world, this is like D&D world, so not only do you have the dangers of a normal voyage, but you also have the danger of you might run into a kraken or a leviathan, or you might be dashed upon the rocks following a siren's call. Like, it's just a dangerous thing to do. Yet for some reason, these three people decided it was a good idea to go to the New World. We have Erasmus Expeditions, Jeremy Lilly himself. Howdy, fellow nerds. Thanks for dropping by, man. So anyway, they had a few adventures where they had first arrived in Varelian. I'll bring the map back up again. As you can see, Eris, the Isle of Eris, that is effectively where their story began. And I effectively used the Isle of Eris as like a tutorial area, almost. Because I wanted to not teach how to play the game, but effectively show how the game is played one stage at a time. When they're on board the vessel, I basically walk Craig how to do, because this is Craig had never played before at all, so this was starting from scratch. I'm having to explain how to do everything, which I feel is a great pleasure. A great pleasure for a dungeon master to do is to be the one to instruct how it works, because everyone has their own ways of doing it, and I'm of the opinion you've just got to drop people into the deep end, and I'm sure most people will probably agree. Why just sit there with the book open when you can just say, no, let's just play, and I'll tell you what to roll and when to roll, and people pick it up. And that's the best way to do it. But despite that, I'm having to set up various things that I know will call upon different things for Craig to use and to do. So at one point, whilst you're on board the ship, one of their fellow crewmates who, I wish I remembered his name. I need to remember his name because they took a point of making very good friends with this NPC that I thought was going to be, to put it bluntly, quite expendable. But they decided that they wanted to be best friends with him. I'm not even on the right bit of my document. I was considering putting the doc up on the screen as well, but to be quite frank, there would be no point in it because it is it is legible to the untrained eye. And like I said, I just want this to be something you can pretty much listen to. We're bare bones here at Performance Check, my goodness me. Where is his name? It might have been one of those that I just made up on the spot and then didn't write down in my notes. No. Oh no, I can't remember his name. Oh well, alright, okay, well I'll try my best to remember his name in the future. And we'll get back to that. But anyway, this NPC that they befriended, like, he got tangled in some ropes and this big thing fell off the ship and he was being dragged towards the edge. And if he would fall in, then he would be dragged to the bottom of the sea and he would perish. So I use this as an example to allow Craig to learn the combat mechanics but not actually drop a combat into this moment, because I like starting games with a combat, don't get me wrong, but on this occasion I just thought, no, let's try something a little different. I've got to entertain the veterans of the game as well at the same time, got to balance it out, so I've got to try something a little different. So Craig has to actually attack the rope. Carlos Angelida, the samurai, has to attack the rope to prevent him from falling in. And he was successful. He rolled and he hit the rope and he cut it and he saved the guy. And because he saved the guy, and then Craig as a new player is seeing, because I've helped this guy, now I have an ally. Now, like, it's introducing introducing the fact that in this game, your actions have consequences, and good consequences sometimes, bad consequences too sometimes. So, anyway, all that to say, the beginning 3 sessions of the game was pretty much like a tutorial almost, and it went through the basics. They were told by an emissary Daryl, who worked for the Dominion, that kingdom I mentioned before, was on board this ship and was coming from Main Realm, the main continent of the world that we play in. And he was coming with an edict of the Dominion, and he has a very quite important mission. But he summons the 3 of them in because he says, "I've been on this vessel with you for months now, and I've seen that the 3 of you are the most competent here. I would like to entrust the 3 of you with this mission. Go to Salt Garden, I think it was called. Let's find out. I think it was Salt Garden. Yeah, Salt Garden. So if you look at the Isle of Eris at the very south of the map, that's where he wants them to go. And he says, please send them this message. Don't read this message. It's sealed for a reason. I need you to deliver this to the chieftain of Salt Garden. And if you are successful, you can then go to landfall, speak with Knight Captain Dask, and he will reward you with a writ of service, which will entitle them to do certain jobs in the new world. Basically, the Dominion is like getting contractors to explore the unfathomable wilderness that is Varelian. Despite the Dominion being there for 100 years, they haven't really made much headway into the wilds. The Isla, which I will show you, is the massive forest, also known as the Shade, colloquially known as the Shade, is really unwieldy, and they can't build there. They're having a real problem deforesting it, because it's just this ancient magical forest filled with threats, filled with terrors, the like that has never been witnessed before. But if they do this job, they will be rewarded with a writ of service, which will entitle them to not have their adventuring money taxed by this overbearing empirical empire-like society. And I'm definitely kind of giving them the vibe that these Dominion people are they're powerful, but they're also no good. Colonialists, which I'm not going to make an opinion on whether being colonial is bad or not, being from the UK. But it fucking is. Excuse my language. See, this is how I get when I've had 2 beers. I just get very rowdy, and I start pointing fingers through history. Anyway, they go, yes, we will take the message to Salt Garden. Why on earth not? And they get into a whole load of scrapes on the Isle of Eris. But the main thing is that they encounter these drowned men that appear from the sea, and they've got these glowing purple eyes. I know that just comes out of nowhere. They're staying at a tavern on their way to Salt Garden, and this is like a stormy night, and these drowned undead guys, as if they're fresh from a shipwreck, just burst into this tavern and start trying to maul them to death. Okay, it was pretty touch and go from the get-go. But oh my god, there's these awful drowned men attacking us, and they appear to be plaguing the Isle of Eris. And they finally get to Salt Garden, and the chieftain confirms this. They appear to be coming from this place called the Deep Window, which used to be a lighthouse that used to stand upon like a big figment of rock. And now it's sunk down into like this gully in the cliffs on the coast, and it is now called the Deep Window. And they're asked to go and investigate, and to maybe try and stop these drowned men, find out the reason why they're coming up. And they accept for 1,000 gold pieces. Now, just bearing in mind that this is still a tutorial area, okay? For 1,000 gold pieces, they'll do this task. And off they go. And I'm not going to go into it, but they basically... This is like the first dungeon. This is like dungeon number 1. They do a bit of exploring. They find some treasures. They fight some... what do they fight down there? They fought, not lizard folk, and anyone in the chat can get this before I... They've got a really weird name. They're like the lizard folk, but they're amphibian. Not the slard. If there is anyone listening, that's a good point. There might not be. I might just be crying into the void. But there is a sea-based version of the lizard folk, and that Sorhagin. The Sorhagin. I remember their name. They fought some Sorhagin, which are like I say, they're like sea versions of the lizard folk. And they appear to be doing the bidding of an unknown figure that is speaking to them through this magical window. And this magical window is gleaming with the same energy that gleams in the eyes of the drowned men, which they beat the Sahorgin and disrupt this magical window, which causes the rest of the drowned men to drop. Hooray, they were successful. And the factotum, Olden, was able to determine that this magical window was actually, before they deactivated it, they saw that there were all these different windows within this window, and each one of them was looking through the gaze of these drowned men, and it transpired that someone was using undead as a mobile scrying network. So possess 100 undead, say, line them all up along the coast, and have each of them have basically scrying eyes that comes back to one feed to be observed. Basically like magical surveillance all along the coast. Someone is keeping tabs on who is arriving in Varelian, but who? And how? And why? And we'll get there. We'll get there, and I'll explain that. But anyway, that's... I'm taking a long time to explain this. It's hard to be vague about this, though, really, and I probably should have guessed, and this is the same sort of thing that I came across when I was recording the campaign journal videos, is that it's all very well saying that you'll breeze over the details, but it's hard to breeze over the details because they're kind of crucial. But anyway, let's go back to the map. So from there, they basically went back to Salt Garden, and absolutely they had, for 1,000 gold pieces, they'd agreed to do this. And as they arrived back, they noticed that signs were going up, and a town crier was yelling how taxes were being raised in Salt Garden for them to be able to afford to pay the adventurers. So again, this is just another way of me showing the newest player, Craig, who wasn't the one who made this action, by the way. This was Mike, one of the experienced players, charging an insurmountable amount of gold from a poor town to deal with this problem. And because he'd been so good at convincing them, they'd agreed to it, but they obviously had to find a way to pay them. And I'm trying to hammer home once again that everything that you do has an equal and opposite reaction. And just because they had done well by the townsfolk of Salt Garden by stopping the undead threat, they had also condemned them to financial oblivion. Which is, it's just how it goes, isn't it, sometimes? But there we are. All that to say, they then completed that mission. They went to landfall, and they discovered why it was this wonder of the new world. It is this sweeping metropolis of a colonial city built upon the remains of an ancient elven city, which was hinted upon in the prologue that I gave earlier. Landfall is this absolutely ginormous citadel structure. And there they note that there is going to be a centenary celebration, and as they go to this Knight Captain Das to get their writ of service so they aren't taxed for whatever they bring back out of the wilderness, it was pretty touch and go, but they made it, and they said we were successful. And Knight Captain Das said, "Well, listen, you appear to be competent, and because of these centenary celebrations, all of the guards are they're basically pushed to the breaking limit at the moment. You know, we're all having to double up on our duties. Things are getting tense. There's more people in the city from the surrounding towns than ever before. So it does mean that some of our other duties are being overlooked." And they were like, "Okay, fine. Yeah, we're happy to do whatever." And they were given a mission from they were actually being contracted by the Dominion, which they felt at the time was going to be pretty good because they're sort of like the controlling power of this world, of this region, which they are. And if they get it high with them, then they'll have more influence. They're after influence from the get-go, which I'm pretty impressed about. That they go straight to the source of power and start getting their roots in, as it were, given that they have a druid in their party as well. It is an apt description. But let's see. I'm actually going to try and use a bit more of my notes here to sort of like try and make it a bit more succinct. But that is an introduction. Bloody hell. So they are told by Knight Captain Dask, that there's a large amount of this drug known as Knave's Leaf being trafficked throughout landfall. They don't know how this is being done, but they know the people that are responsible for this. They are known as the Denark family, and they are known to distribute this crop from a notorious tavern known as the Leaky Tap. And their mission, if they choose to accept it, is to halt the production of this Knave's Leaf. And the Dominion have hired them not only because they're running short of men, but also because they kind of want plausible deniability. Like Captain Dask explains that the city has an undercity, and a great many criminal families operate within the undercity, and if they piss off one of them, then it might piss off all of them, in which case they'll have a full-blown uprising on their hands, and they can't be having that right when the Centenary Celebrations are about to happen. Gonna have a quick drink. This is the problem with streaming on your own. You've just gotta keep talking. It's mad. Hairy nerdy guy. Matthew. I'm surprised it was Mike to overcharge. Sounds more like a Dom move. I disagree. Matt's in our most recent game that Mike's running now. Excellent player and a long-time friend of mine. And I'm glad that you're on in the chat, my friend. But yes, I'm afraid actually I have to disagree. Mike was absolutely like, no. I want 1,000 gold for this. So he got it. He got the 1,000 gold. But at what cost? Well, I've told you the cost. Anyway, so they're given that mission to basically go to the Leaky Tap and stop the production of Knave's Leaf, which they do. They go under the Leaky Tap. Pardon me. This is the problem with me drinking a beer on a stream. It's ridiculous and disgusting, and I do apologise. He says, taking another gigantic swig. So yeah, they're told to stop the production of this Knave's Leaf, and they go to the Leaky Tap, and they actually overhear a meeting that's happening with a number of criminal entrepreneurs. It's sort of like the function room of the tavern. I like the idea that taverns in D&D are like pubs these days, where there's just like a side room where if you want like a meeting or like a or a cheap wedding celebration place. What the fuck is that called? the wedding do. If someone could tell me, because my brain will explode. What is the name of the celebration after a wedding? Funeral, it's a wake, which incidentally can also happen in a function room. No, I'm just going to have to wait and see if someone saves me in the chat, because I have no idea. I can't remember. Anyway, all that to say, they're in a function room, and they overhear a meeting going on about easing relations with an individual known as Zorda Skullrus, who they quickly learn is the crime lord of the Undercity. And they're also discussing an individual named as Daedalus, who is being apparently kept in the basement and doing all the hard work. Like, what does that mean? They sneak under the leaky tap and they discover that the sewers beneath the leaky tap are being used to ferry the Knave's Leaf via a number of barges. Basically, the Denark family are shipping Knave's Leaf through the city in a subterranean manner. Therefore avoiding the prying gaze of the Dominion. But what is more shocking is that for Ash in particular, Ashbourne the Druid, he notes that this crop is. It doesn't seem like it seems like it's had like the most brilliant blooming of the plant's existence. Yeah, how can that be when it is like under the ground? How are they able to grow this plant that usually flourishes in the sun in the sewer? The answer is closer than they might think. They go into this chamber and they find an imprisoned half-elf named Zakasa, and he is an exile of the druidic order known as the Adelan. And the Adelan, that's their elven name. Sorry, the Adelan. What was the normal name? The Circle of Shepherds. They're known as the Circle of Shepherds, and these are druids who operate within this area. And Ashbourne admits, he's like, the reason I'm here is a pilgrimage. And they're like, oh really? And they say, yeah, he's over here to bring back something for his clan. Definitely not a cult, he explains. They're like, what? He's like, it's not a cult. He said, we didn't say it was a cult. He's like, well, just so you know, it's not a cult. Like, alright, a bit defensive. It's not a cult. He's like, I'd love to meet these Circle of Shepherds. And Zakasa says, well, listen, I'll tell you where they are if you help me, if you get me out of here. They're making me use my druidic powers to grow drugs. And they're like, oh, that's a shame, but yes, we will help you. So this very stoned half-elf is rescued. And they're about to go, and they go, no, wait, we can't go. We have to stop the production of the Knave's Leaf. So like, right, let's continue exploring. Let's keep going further into the depths of this place. And they discover Daedalus, this member of the Denark family, who is being discussed in the function room upstairs. Has anyone come up with that? Reception! Thank you, Matthew. Fucking hell. Pardon my language, but man, yeah, my brain just could not handle that word. Actually, yeah, Mike has played at some pretty heartless toads in the past. He has. He really has. Yeah, well, that's another story. So yeah, they let this guy go, the Zakasa go, and they run into Daedalus Denark, who is the enforcer of the family, who's the enforcer of the Denark family, and is formidable in combat. The reason why he is confined to this sewer, they've been talking, there's been lots of hints about him having some kind of condition, and they're like, oh my god, like, is he like hideous? Is he mutated? Well, sort of. As he charges towards them, he erupts into a different form. Mid-leap, he transforms into his alternate visage. He is a were-rat. And his teeth sink painfully into Carlos's arm. And it's like, oh my god, get it off me! And this desperate battle happens when they're under this thing, and suddenly all the Knave's Leaf around them catches fire. So the room is just being filled with this intoxicant smoke whilst they're fighting a were-rat. Can you imagine a more terrifying thing to happen? You are all of a sudden stoned out of your brain, and this rat, the size of the ones from Princess Bride, is suddenly upon you. It like runs along the wall and then bounces off and collides with them and stuff. It was mental. Mental. All that to say, they were in a bitter battle with this thing, and purely by chance, Craig remembered that Carla Sangalaida, the samurai, had picked up this thing called Quicksilver, which is a coating that you can put on your blade. And it basically gives your weapon the property of a silver weapon for a time. And basically he was able to crack that mid-combat and then slice his katana through the were-rat, slaying it. And as the fire had already taken like hold of the crop, they basically considered, well, that's a job well done. They've beaten they've stopped production of the Knave's Leaf, and they've put an end to the people who were growing it. And they left without warning anyone in the tavern upstairs. But in fairness to them, they were kind of like, well, they don't seem like particularly good guys, to be honest, so whatever. So as the fires grew and grew and grew, they left, and that was the end of their like first arc, as it was, them arriving in this new world, exploring the Isle of Eris, and then making their way to landfall and doing a few missions, all before the Centenary Celebrations, celebrating 100 years since the founding of Landfall. They learn Arthas the Explorer was the individual who arrived here 100 years ago and founded this city upon the bones of an older civilization. And they learn that the celebrations for that is going to be happening the next day. So they're very excited about that. They're going to enjoy a bit of a party. They also get word. Word begins to travel fast that great storms have been erupting over the forests lately. The forest of the Idalar, which is that big. I'll show you it again. The big forest, otherwise known as the Shade. And within it, there's a place called Skycleave, which you will see is just east of landfall there. They've heard that this place is a vault of ancient knowledge, yet only the other day its entrance has been blasted open. It was formerly blocked by like a colossal boulder the size of like a keep, and now this boulder has been blasted away by lightning, and the entrance to this place is now revealed, and all manner of adventurers are now apparently going to flock there to see what is inside. Because lots of people have come here hoping to recover the ancient mysteries of this new world. But because of the stubbornness of the Ainlar, because of its danger, there's not a lot has actually... No one's actually really been that successful. And they see Skycleave as a potential area of success because it's fairly close to landfall. It's not as thick in the Ainlar as other places. Let's have a go. So the players sort of like make a note of that. And we're like, well, we kind of want to get there fairly quickly. You know, if other adventurers are flocking there, we want to make sure that we lay our claim as early as possible. They get ready to do that. And they go, right, we'll enjoy the Centenary Celebrations and then we will depart. Only the Centenary Celebrations are not as easy as they... doesn't go off as easy as they might appear to do. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm going to take a very quick break. So I'm going to be away for a couple of minutes. Going to fill up a drink, and I'll be back very shortly. Don't go anywhere. There we go. I'm back. My goodness. It's a lot of getting used to OBS. There's quite a lot of mute buttons. I don't know if I'm muting my desktop, my mic, or my video capture device. It's all a little bit crazy. Wow. I'm really happy about the reception so far. Thank you everyone who has dropped by to say hello so far. Really means the world. If any of you would like, I would be incredibly grateful if you could follow me, because there's going to be quite a lot of stuff hopefully coming up on the Performance Check Twitch channel and across a few other Twitch channels as well, which is what I wanted to talk about, and I suppose midway through is probably a good way to talk about it. And it's rather fitting that one of the players who will be involved in this is in the chat right now. So, for a while now, this is the game that the all-encompassing Dungeons & Dragons game that I'm currently enjoying as a player right now, called Genesis of the Abyss, is being run by our good friend Mike, who plays Olden Remelstein, who is the factotum that I was telling you about, the one that Matthew called what did you call Michael? Just for prosperity, just so we're all on the same page. Matt called Mike a heartless toad. There you go. Just for the record, not shit stirring at all. We're going to be we're playing a current game of Dungeons & Dragons on Roll20 at the moment. I should have explained. This game that we're playing at the moment is all on Roll20. And it's been a saving grace because it's enabled us to play D&D regularly in a world filled with uncertainty, and a world also where it's very busy and it's hard to get people all in the same room, but it is very easy to turn on your computer and to roll some dice from the comfort of one's own home. But anyway, all that to say, we're currently enjoying a game called Genesis of the Abyss, and it is a fantastic experience that I hungrily wait for every week. And I've learned from the mistakes of this campaign by making very thorough notes. Because I'm a player, I don't have to worry about the prep. I am basically pouring a lot of my energy into recording our efforts, our campaign journal, from a player's perspective. So every session I write up like a journal entry. So at some point I'm going to, when that game concludes, which I hope isn't anytime soon because I am thoroughly enjoying it, I will release that campaign journal, and I might read it, I might release it as an audio thing, or sort of in the vein of what I just did with the Nothing That Is Gold Can Stay, but also I might just release it as a thing for people to read. It is long. It is I can't remember the exact word count, but it easily meets the criteria of a novella so far, which is fairly long. But then when you're writing like 4 or 5 pages week to week, it does mount up. So there you go. It's been really enjoyable. But anyway, all that to say, when that campaign is finished, I will release that. But also, when that campaign is finished, our home gaming group, so that's myself, that's Matt, who's in the chat right now, that's Mike, who's the factotum we're talking about, that's Craig, the samurai, and Dom, who plays Ashbourne Briar. We are all going to be taking our Dungeons and Dragons game, and we are going to be playing on Twitch. And I imagine whoever is running the games is going to be the ones whose Twitch channel is upon. I'm aiming for the next one for me to run, but well, we have to have that conversation, I suppose. But that is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be bringing our home gaming group online because, we're a bunch of theatre people, and we like to think that our Dungeons & Dragons gaming group is worth a watch, as I'm sure most people who play Dungeons & Dragons think, but we have a great time. and it's just nice for us to do something like that, I think. So we haven't decided on it. There's a rough idea of a name we're kicking around, but we haven't 100% confirmed it yet, so I'm not going to say what it's going to be called, but we are going to begin a Dungeons and Dragons show, and it's going to be my beautiful home gaming group, and I'm really excited. It's going to be incredible. It is going to imagine, well, at least the game that I want to run is going to take place in Main Realm, which is our and has been our shared setting for years. It started in 2010, so what, that makes it 12 years? 12-year-old Dungeons and Dragons setting, and a lot has happened in that world, which makes it quite rich to play in, and it makes it quite rich to prepare for as well. Varelian, this setting that I've been talking about in the stream so far, is effectively the new world. It's like the America to Main Realms Europe, effectively. Although actually Varelian is to the east, not to the west. So, but effectively the same thematic kind of feel. So yeah, that was sort of like the announcement I wanted to make. It's not really like a huge announcement. There's no bells and whistles or anything, but it is really exciting to me that these players that I've often spoken about on my YouTube channel will now be joining me in the fray online, and it is incredibly exciting. If you want to get to know Matt, who is currently playing Trout Mickleberry, the halfling in Regenesis of the Abyss, you can see in the chat, hairy nerdy guy is well, that's Matt. He's one of my best friends of all time, and he is the best Elden Ring streamer in the world. I mean that. He is. No, Matt streams on Twitch already, so I would urge you, if you're watching this, if you like watching people have a miserable time on Elden Ring, check out Matt's channel and get used to him, because he's going to be on this channel as well. So go give him a follow as well, please. Right. Where were we? The Centenary Celebrations. So, yeah, they've noticed all these banners going up around the city and stuff, and they're getting really excited. Oh my goodness, so many people have come to Landfall for this this celebration of 100 years since Landfall was founded. I'm going to bring up my notes, because I realise I keep riffing off the top of my head, and really, I could just be looking at my notes and helping myself out a little bit. So the Great Square is filled with citizens. There is a great pool that lies at its centre, and in the middle of that pool there grows an incredible tree. It's well, they do a check, and Ashbourne, the druid, is able to ascertain that this is one of the Fey trees. It is a tree that has grown from a seed that grows through the veil. So this tree grows from a different place in the cosmology known as the Feywild, and grows as if through the soil of reality borders into the material plane. So it is a beautiful, wondrous tree that grows at the heart of the Great Square. Which further indicates that this city was once elven, not human. Like the humans are built on top of the past, which is a thing that I constantly harken back to when I make D&D cities, fantasy cities, because then it gives you the excuse to have all different kinds of hidden things under the city. But anyway, they're in this great square, and like I say, citizens everywhere. There's market stalls, there's celebrations, there's street food that's being cooked, musicians are playing, bards are evoking great ballads of the past. And then suddenly, from the walls of Rookspire, Overseer Greylock, the ruler of Landfall, basically the head conquistador of the Dominion in this part of the world, addresses the city, and he explains how as I mentioned, 100 years ago, Arthas the Explorer arrived here to make this a bold new world and a new step for humanity. Basically, like doing the Neil Armstrong speech. One small step for man, but instead of being the moon, being in a Fey-infested hellhole known as Varelian. But it's very beautiful to look at. And everyone's happy, everyone's cheering and excited, and then all of a sudden, some unexpected guests arrive. Nicurian, the Lord of Autumn, flanked by the Eversworn, his personal guard, arrive. He is a tall figure, and he moves with a warlike bearing, and he's flanked by all of these warriors, and he's got this sleek armour. He's got a long shock of moonlight silver hair that falls to his shoulders, framing a strong and perfectly fair face. I basically give the description as I gave before. He's just this powerful, warlike Eladrin. He's 7 foot tall. He's got this amazing armour, absolutely terrifying. He looks like Sephiroth on speed. He's just not someone you want to mess with. And he arrives, and he's got this battle-torn cloak that appears to drift with the winds and storms of autumn around him. He's just like this elemental figure, which the Eladrins should be. Quick history lesson. When the Elves left Arvindor, which is the first realm that they came from, this is in my setting anyway, sort of borrowed from the original D&D lore and twisted slightly. They came from Arvindor, which is a different realm of the world, and they went via the Feywild. Now, some stayed and became the Eladrin and became infused with all of these seasonal powers, hence why they all fall into summer, autumn, winter, and spring Eladrin. There are 4 Kahadris of Eladrin, depending on what season it is. But then some of the elves continued onwards and founded their settlements in Varelian in the Prime Plane. Some of them went across to the sea to Main Realm. Some of them took heed from their own, and some of them took heed from the spider, and they vanished into the dark, not to be seen for many eras, and they became the Drow. That's the elf mythology of this setting, anyway, for the most part. It's got a bit more to it than that, as you will learn as this story goes on. This is basically my love letter to the elves. The elves kind of got shifted in a lot of our games in the past, so this was sort of a way to, I don't know. Anyway, so this Nicurian, the Lord of Autumn, he appears, and he's just a landlord, I'm trying to make this he's sort of the primary, I'm not going to say villain, but he is the primary antagonist, and I think he has a good reason to be here. And he basically arrives, like I say, he's got this dying sort of light that almost like this stasis kind of field around him almost. It's very peculiar. And there's ripples from his interlocking plates. Like I said in the intro before, he has ornate filigree across the armour, which depicts patterns of war and magic, and the story that filigree tells is not a pleasant one. It tells of a war that existed and happened a long way away in another place in another time, and we'll get to that one day in the future. He finally arrives, and he's basically just stood there looking up at this fay tree that grows in the centre of this court, and he says, and I've actually thankfully written some fucking dialogue in my prep for a change rather than just coming up with it, because it's hard on a stream. Anyway, he says something along the lines of this: "Humanity, bastions of morality, allow me to welcome you to our shores. Your arrival here was only recently brought to my attention, and here I find in 100 years you have flourished here. I am Nicurian, the Lord of Autumn, ruler of the Eladrin beyond the Veil. I have returned from war to find another waged and lost at my people's gates. This land was a gift to our child race, the Elves, when first they stepped upon the Prime Plane. We helped them build a great civilization here, and now I find you have built upon walls upon..." Well, hang on. That was a dreadful spelling mistake in my prep. See, this is why I should prepare for these things. We helped them build a great civilization here, and now I find you have built walls upon the fallen bones of our world. Yet it is of some small comfort to see that the fey trees still flourish here. Look upon them now, for their branches reach towards your fate. May you set your sails forth, and let the eastern wind carry you across the sea from whence you came. For by the fall of the first leaves of autumn, I shall reclaim the lands you took from our people. Overseer Greylock, still on top of the wall, interrupted from his address, is not very happy. Despite the fact that to the Eladrin he is an uninvited guest, the Dominion think that this is their home because they have such a shorter lifespan than the Elves. They think, oh, we've been here ages, we've been 100 years. Whereas the Eladrin are like, you've been here a millisecond. In the grand scheme of things. You've literally just turned up now and we're kicking you out. That's the dilemma. That's the problem. What happens when two martial races collide with such a different perspective from the other? What are they to do? They've literally been here 100 years, yet the elves think they've been here a moment, a blink of an eye, as Centurion has said. What are they going to do? Well, I'll tell you what they're going to do. Overseer Greylock says, kill them! So, the Dominion Guard, they don't know what they're getting themselves into. They sweep through the courtyard towards Nakurian and his Eversworn. And it's like Nakurian, like 20 of them. And like there's like 200-300 of these Dominion Guard. And the Eladrin just start wiping them out. Like, it's insane. Nakurian moves like thunder and lightning. Like he like wind, like, and gales follow wherever he goes. Funnily enough, another name of the Eladrin is the Gael, the Gale. So that was another reason why he's got this cool kind of like wind that actually personally blows his sweeping hair and personally blows his cloak to make him look dramatic. Anyway, they start just laying into the guards of the Dominion, just like wiping them out. Then all of a sudden, more Eladrin have appeared in positions on rooftops around the city and are just firing arrows into the Dominion Guard, and it is just insane. And like that, war has erupted within the land of Varelian. And it's almost like Nakurian had just wandered in and hoped that humanity would attack them, because he knew that they would. Like, obviously they're going to. Obviously they're humans. Obviously they're overprotective. The first thing that they're going to do is try and attack us. And they proved him right. And all the while, the players are stood in the corner like, like, what is going on? This is insane. And I say, like, and I said, oh, I wish see, this is why. What I'll do is I'll bring up the statement. The statement. I was reading the chat and it caught my eye. Let's just have a quick look very quickly before I go into that. Matt says, I stand by my statement about the heartless toad. Thanks, man. Ah, Matt's got a little emoji of his face. You'll have to teach me how to do that. Yeah, go follow Matt at Harry Nerdy Guy. I set up this whole battle and I show them, like, on Roll20 you have the benefit of being able to do these large grand maps. So I've got like this whole battle erupting in front of them in this great square, and I'm like, do you engage? They're like, what? I'm like, well, you can either go and get involved, or you don't have to. But I'm kind of like, go on, get involved, like, help them, help the Dominion, go on. And they're like, nah. They're like, nah. I was like, are you sure? Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure we don't want to get involved. I'm like, but I've set up this whole battle. And like, yeah, probably not. Then that guy says he's really powerful, which he was, and he is. And I was like, fair enough. He said, listen, it's not our business. And they're absolutely right. It's in their business. Like, we're just for hire. We're not just going to get involved for no reason. And I couldn't have been more prouder of them. I was like, amazing. They're not just getting into a fight because of shits and giggles. They've actually thought about it. Like, no, we don't want to. We want to go and visit Skycleave. So they did. They withdrew from the court and they were like, we're just gonna go. And in the middle of this massive battle, they just left the city. They're like, not our problem. Bye. I was like, fair enough. That's great. Good for you. Good for you. They decided that they wanted to go to Skycleave, and if I'm honest, I think they were just being polite and having a quick look at the Centenary Celebrations before scramming to the newly opened entrance of Skycleave. So off they went, and I was like, fair enough. That's fine by me. Let's just see what kind of city you discover when you return. If they return, that is. So off they go. Now let's bring up the map again. So Skycleave, as I said, is to the east of landfall. And Ashbourne remembered that he was talking to Zakasa, the drug druid. And he said, "Oh, he told me where the Circle of Shepherds is," and unsurprisingly, it is where that big circle is. Now, unfortunately, this isn't the fully annotated. I'll have to get the annotated map because I didn't label everything on the map. I wanted them to discover places and sort of write down what they discovered along the way. And this is actually the new version of the map. But anyway, if you can see beneath Skycleave that there is a crescent of trees and then a circle of pillars, that is where the Circle of Shepherds is, in a circle. At some point I'd like to go and visit them. Alright, fine, that's cool. So they make their way to Skycleave. They have an encounter on the way that I'll go into very quickly. They come across a monk who is upon a bridge and he looks really forlorn and upset. Let's see if I can bring out the details of this monk. Oh, that's right. Before they were speaking to like Captain Das, when they finished their mission, he did ask them if they wouldn't mind checking on Why Not, which is Why Not Yonder, which is a town. Where is it? So Why Not Yonder is sort of between Landfall and Skycleave, and they have an outpost there that's gone quiet. And they would like it investigated. But then, since the events of the Centenary Celebrations, they're like, well, we can kind of guess why a Dominion encampment might have gone quiet if there's this, like, elite, ancient elven force that has, like, made its presence known in this land. They're like, oh, well, we'll definitely check it out. And they did, and they... On the way, they made a detour to Why Not Yonder, and the town was brimming with outcasts and just destitute people because there isn't the space, because humanity hasn't been able to expand into the realm as much as they would have wanted to because the Ainullar are just too stubborn and they can't cut the thing down. There's just all these people that have come to their new world yet don't have a place to live, so it's just brimming with people that like desperately need to do things, so they are exerting themselves in this great deforestation effort. But every time that they like cutting back trees, it seems like more grow in its place. Anyway, they learn that as they're at Why Not Yonder, and they also get a little magic item from. Oh God, why aren't any of the NPCs' names where I want them to be? There must be an NPC list. There is. Here we are. Ghent was the guy that they saved on the ship. That was Ghent. Where is he? Elsfor. They meet Elsfor, who is the son of the Elderman of Why Not, and he is a budding alchemist, and he gives them an ember fire coal. And this Ember Fire Coal was a magic item of my own creation, which is basically like a disposable one-use fireball. What you do is you put this coal in your party camp overnight, and then the next day you just pick up the coal carefully and put it in this metal container thing, something that stops it from burning your other stuff, basically. And then, at your choosing, you can take this coal out and throw it, and wherever it lands, a fireball will detonate. And it's just a cool way of like giving them like a powerful magical item that does a fireball fairly early, but they always have to prepare it. So they always have to be thinking about, oh, we need to make sure that we've prepped the Ember Fire Coal. So Alden Rebelstein, the factotum, has that, and he ensures to do that before they embark on their quest to Skycleave. And they finally get to Skycleave. That's the wrong one. That's the small version. So they get to Skycleave. And when did they get there? What number session was it when they arrived at Skycleave? It was number session 5, maybe? Bear in mind that this is a 32 session campaign. So, admittedly, we bombed through this game really quickly. So it wasn't like it was like as long as Genesis of the Abyss, our current game, is currently. But still, lengthy. Yeah, session 5 and 6 took place in Skycleave. Which, if anything, probably indicates to you, ladies and gentlemen, that we're probably not going to get through this entire campaign this evening. But, you know, that's fine. That just gives me more material to work with. That means I can do more of these. If people would like me to do more of these, I would love to hear from you. And if you would like me not to do these, I would not like to hear from you. But everyone's entitled to their tastes. So anyway, Skycleave. They find the ancient vault of the first elves. That's what they discover. This is like one of the first structures ever created by elvenkind. This ancient like monolith in the forest. And it appears to like erupt out of nature itself. Like one solid bit of rock as if carved by magic. And in its day, they learn it was a place of peace, diplomacy and learning. It was also the site of a great council where a treaty was signed. But they don't know that yet. However, inside, a dark force has begun to seep into this place, and it has taken hold of this ancient elven monolith of history. And this evil force has begun bewitching objects and changing the architecture. When they first arrive, as insinuated earlier, that rumours had spread thick and fast rather quickly about Skycleave being opened up. And as such, lots of adventurers went there straight away to try and have first dibs on whatever loots they could find inside. And they find such an adventurer dead before them at the entrance. And they're like, oh, okay. Interesting. His name was, the player characters found Eddard, murdered in the cave entrance. And they sneak into this cave that's blocked by this, because there aren't any doors or windows to Skycleave. It's just like this big tower. Like imagine Orthanc, but without any windows or doors. But they find this cave entrance is the only way to get inside it. And it's surrounded by this blasted like debris, which is where this great pillar of rock was that's been hit by lightning and blown up, which allows them entry. But as they go in and they start meandering through this cave, they realise in horror that it's not only adventurers that have come to lay claim to the treasure that lies within. All kinds of other entities that exist in this realm have also set their eyes on what lies within, and they are confronted by a gang of hobgoblins who have set up shop here and have actually been able to like use the tunnels of the cave in a guerrilla warfare like fashion against them. Alden was walking like past like these big iron bars, and all of a sudden a hobgoblin like surprise attacked him and just drove a spear through his side like it was an insane attack. Just jabbed him in the side with a spear, like running him through, and then this massive battle erupted. And as they began, like, they basically were fighting and moving through the cave. They wanted to try and make sure they were going to keep moving. And as they kept moving through the cave network, they saw that this place opened up into this massive cavernous area, and inside this cavernous area they found a great stone keep within, which was sort of like the protective walls of this vault that lies within, fashioned by elven magic. Yeah, they have this absolutely ginormous fight with some hobgoblins. They also have an ogre. They have a cave ogre. Doesn't quite have the same ring to it, does it? But yeah, they battle this ogre, and I remember Alden tried to use the ember coal fireball thing, and he threw it at the ogre, and it's only like you only have to like hit the touch armor class of the area next to it or whatever for it to just to detonate and hit it with a fireball, right? But he critically failed and just winged it off into the distance, and it hit one of the towers of that of the fortifications that I was explaining about, and it just collapsed. And it was just this insane battle. Like, it was the first time they were up against like a lot of enemies, and it was fairly overwhelming. Pretty diabolical, because I made sure to tier the battle. So first of all, they'd fight some hobgoblins, and then the noise of that battle drew more to them. So it was basically like a battle of waves, like a firefight mode, or like a hold this ground or something. Like they came thick and fast, and obviously at the end they brought through this ogre as well. Massive battle, right? They notice that there is a giant pit that's further away in a different direction in this network of caves. And there's some carvings on sort of like a dais. No, not a dais. What am I talking about? Like a mural on the wall, and it speaks of Sargon, servant of Lolth. And it's just this picture of this giant scorpion next to this pit. And it is effectively a sign pointing to the pit saying, "Here lies a big ass scorpion." Sargon the Immobilizer, so my notes have called him the Ancient Taint. They decide not to approach the pit. And they left it well alone. Which, again, showed wisdom. In my humble opinion, anyway. I don't know. Well, you can tell me in the chat, actually, if anyone... Do you think that you should like have a rest before or after every combat, or do you think are you a firm believer in going from one fight to the next? If you're a player, be keen to know people's thoughts. I have a sip of beer very quickly. Oh, dear me. So, yeah, they definitely avoided the scorpion pit. Which is not something you get to say every day. They avoided Sargon, the Ancient Taint, Sargon, the Immobilizer, Sargon, servant of Lolth, and instead went to the entry chamber, where there was a nice rug and some curtains and a half-orc called Maurice, Did they go that way? No. This is why. Right. This is why it's interesting going through my prep. And not reading a journal about this, because my prep is just a list of different areas they can go in, which coincides with the map that I had made for them to explore. So they actually didn't go to the entry chamber, I remember now. Had they gone in there, they would have found Growled, Maurice, the half-orc, and Velpa, who were the 3 other adventurers who had murdered, spoiler alert, the one that they found outside. They were looking into this well of memory that was out the front, and we'll get onto the well of memories at some point, I'm sure. There are a few dotted around Varelian, and they basically echo of things that have happened in the past of the land. That's right, they cut straight through to the call. So there was all these great tables. They passed where they fought through to the sort of like the inner keep where this ogre had been like housed, and where this tower had been detonated by this fireball that Alden totally whiffed. And they passed there, went through these double doors, went into this big hall. Great tables strewn everywhere. Desiccated remains of a feast that had occurred there thousands of years ago. There's bodies lying there as if some dreadful thing has happened. And there is an ancient throne at the very far end of this hall. And the throne itself appears to be much older than the surroundings of this place. So even older is this sort of like throne that appears to have been built around almost. Yeah, there is this figure sat there in the throne. It is, I say a figure, like basically a skeleton. The skeleton that looks dishevelled and awful. And they're sort of like searching everywhere, and they find like a bit of loot here and there. They find like ancient elven like artifacts. You know, this place is like filled with. It's like going into a pyramid for the first time. Like imagine being the first person to enter one of the ancient pyramids of Egypt, and what you'd find inside. That's effectively the experience that these guys are getting. Well, the third. They got beaten to the punch by one group of adventurers and some hobgoblins and a few other things that we will go into. They approach this dead guy on the throne. He's like this ancient skeleton, and they're like, "Oh wow, that looks pretty rough." And then all of a sudden the head looks up and they're like, oh no, and they're expecting it to be like an undead zombie. And then all of a sudden this thing's spine begins to elongate, and its head and spine erupt out of the skeleton. And it's all been a ploy. It's all been a trick for a bone Naga was resting within the rib cage of an existing skeleton that was sat on the throne. So this bone Naga, basically just like this diabolical skull on the end of an incredibly long bone tail, just erupted out of this body. They're all like, like, that's gross. And this terrifying spell-casting snake with the head, the human skull, or elven skull as this case would be, was just like erupting spells out of his mouth, like like scorching rays and magic missiles just erupting out of his mouth, and then like whipping them with its tail and stuff. They had an insane battle with that Naga, I remember now. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And they got battered, but were able to overthrow the bone Naga and smashed it to bits. Carlos Ungolider, the samurai, is already showing that like he can put out like a fair amount of damage even at a low level. So when he gets later on, and we see how powerful Carlos Ungolider becomes, and when I say that, I mean probably one of the strongest melee characters I've ever seen in any role-playing game ever. Yeah, but in a cool way, in a deserved cool way, I will add. So they beat a Naga to death. Again, because it's already dead, because it's a bone Naga. Just looking at my notes. What then? They then moved through the archive, and actually this is where they uncovered the book known as Beyond the Veil, which is what the titled campaign is based off, and it contained the story that I told at the very beginning of the stream about Nakurian's overthrow of Solathon, the Lord of Summer. And they learn about the Eladrin, and they learn that, oh wow, the Eladrin, they sort of learn their point of view. They learn, oh wow, they see the humans as sort of invaders, really, because to them 100 years is nothing. And they've come back from this terrible war to find that this place, this sacred ground, this bridge between the Feywild and the Shadowfell is now beset by humans, and that is a problem. They also learn that they learn about the Elven Genesis, like I mentioned before. So all of Elvenkind were banished from Arvindor, and first they arrived in the Feywild where the Eladrin flourished. The Drow were tempted, and the Elves fled. The Eladrin vowed to help the Elves build and prosper on the Prime Plane, wanting the bridge between the Feywild and the Shadowfell guarded. So the Elves had a reason to be there. They were like, yeah, alright, if you're going to leave the Feywild, the least you can do is make sure that this place is protected, because there is our sworn enemies in the Feywild, are just over there. So do your job. And they learn why Varelian is such like a pivotal place among not only in the world, but among the many planes of the cosmology of our world. And they also learn that there is... Where is it? Have I written about that elsewhere? There's one other very important thing that they learned about in the archive. The Alliance of Arvindor. Here we are. So I have another section in my D&D prep, which is basically just lore. So if I just want to... I can't help myself. I end up writing lore even when I don't mean to. And I understand that sometimes that can be slightly alienating depending on who is playing the game, or if people are interested, or if they're bored by it, whatever. But it is there. It's always there in my games. I always like to make sure that there's like a healthy dose of background. The Alliance of Arvindor, the Feywild and the Shadowfell were polar opposites. One in constant change and exquisite... That doesn't make sense. One in constant change, exquisite, and in unstoppable emotional. Emotional? That doesn't make sense. Basically, one is in constant change and is governed strongly by emotions. The other is cold, stagnant, and locked in an endless cycle of inescapable fate. During the days of a war far gone, Nakurian forged an alliance between the two realms in the interest of survival, with Varelian acting as a bridge between them. Spring and summer is the time of the Fey, autumn and winter is the time of the Fell. Nakurian is the sole arbiter of this alliance and takes court with both the Archfey and the Raven Queen to organise this brokering of the peace, whilst another seemingly calamitous war was occurring. So they learned that while this place is a sacred place for the elves, their sacred duty is to guard here, so no one comes out of the Shadowfell or whatever. They learned that there was a time peace between the Feywild and the Shadowfell. They, for some reason, discovered that the enemy of their enemy was their friend, and forged a temporary alliance, which was called the Alliance of Arvindor, which was brokered by this Nakurian that they met earlier. And this alliance is broken here. And the terms of this alliance was brought into a stone tablet that can be found at the height of Skycleave. They're like, oh wow, well we want that tablet, they think. So they continue looking in the archive, and they open a chest, and a mimic slammed itself into Alden's face. Now, I don't know if you know much about mimics, but they have a sticky substance. They're created from a sticky substance, so if you hit them, you become attached to them, and they then gnaw at you. I should explain if you don't know what a mimic is. A mimic is like a terrifying abomination of a creature that disguises itself as ordinary things, and more often than not, it's a treasure chest. Because it lures people in, going, oh, there's a lovely bit of treasure. Let's open. Oh my god, my hands are stuck. Oh my god, I'm getting eaten. Like, that's the mimic's tactic. Only the mimic managed to attach itself to Alden's face somehow. So this horrifying battle of this mimic trying to consume Alden. But they're able to, like, throw the mimic off. But it was just a lovely little surprise. No one expects the mimic until it is too late. They delved deeper into Skycleave, and they found that there were actually this great cavernous drop, and it's bridged by all these stone bridges, like imagine like in Moria or whatever, or Elden Ring. You just get those cavernous drops, but there's like tiny little ledges to walk across. They're going along that, and all of a sudden they are beset by an elven adversary. A number of elves erupt out of the darkness to challenge them, but they are completely bold, incredibly pale, and they learn that these elves are known as the Shadar Kai, which are effectively what the Eladrin are for the Feywild, the Shadow Kai are for the Shadowfell. They are elves that were trapped in the Shadowfell and served the Raven Queen, the mad elven goddess, the Raven Queen. They're there as well because they've learned that that Skycleave has been breached, and it is their wish to claim this tablet, and they sort of have this back and forth before inevitable combat erupts, where one of them summons a terrifying wyvern to bring to bear at the players. The leader of the Shadow Kai disappears up into the tower whilst the heroes do battle against them. Outlanders, they are known as. Like, he cries, "Kill the Outlanders!" And that sort of becomes their nickname, is the Outlanders, because they're all from a different place, and that is a definite theme that reoccurs in this game. They somehow manage to defeat this wyvern, but only after Carlos Unglider is hurled into the depths and into the darkness, and is saved just in time by Ashbourne, who at this stage reveals he can transform into a big owl because he's a druid. So he catched Carlos at the last second, and then flew back up to the top, rescuing him, and he pursued this Shadow Kai agent up the tower, up to the top of Skycleave, where they had a bitter battle, locked in grave contest at the summit of this great and ancient tower. Let's see, because I definitely had something written about this somewhere. Bear with. I'm going to have a drink. My throat is very dry. I'm going to wrap up shortly, but I do want to get to the end of the Skycleave bit. And I'm looking forward to continuing this, actually. I was foolishly thought I could do this in one, and that would appear to be impossible. But I'll be able to do it in 3 or 4, I reckon. No, that's too far. No, that's too far. Very sorry about this. There we are. So, they learn that pit that Carlos and he fell in was actually a dark doorway to the Shadowfell, and that's where the Shadow Kai had arrived from. They basically arrived from beneath Skycleave. And that's it. They were seeking memories and knowledge in service of the Raven Queen, because the Raven Queen is insanely gathering moments of time. If you don't know, the Raven Queen effectively has a fractured mind, and she obsessively claws at moments in time and memories and trinkets and things that have meaning, all in a mad, like, insane way of trying to, like, piece together her own mind, because something or someone fractured her memories a very long time ago. And that's something I'm going to talk about in a future stream, is who shattered the Raven Queen's mind and drove her insane. But for now, that's why they're there. They're here to discover, well, only the Raven Queen remembers why this pact was forged. So we're going to go and find the reason for it. So that's why the Shadowkai are after the tablet at the top. There we go. See, I should just read my notes. Rather than trying to riff and remember things. So don't try and remember things. That's what the Raven Queen tries to do. And look at her. So this great battle erupts atop the tower, atop Skycleave, for the possession of the stone tablet at the top, which Nakurian forged all that time ago. And it is a terrifying battle. They are up against, for the first time, an incredibly powerful spellcaster in the Shadowkai, who uses like shadow magic, uses illusion, and at one point tries to hurl one of them off the edge. Tries to hurl Alden over the edge of the off the edge of the tower, which would mean certain death. Yeah, it's a stunning battle, and he also summons like these like shadowy sort of like raven-like creatures to like battle alongside him. But the Outlanders proved to be victorious and smote him and claimed the tablet that spoke of the alliance of Arvindor. And that is where that moment ended. That's kind of where that like chapter of the campaign concluded. Because next time they head off to discover more about the Circle of Druids. The Circle of Shepherds, sorry. Forgive me. Pardon me. So yeah, next session they head off back to that circle that I was talking about before. And learn a little more from them. But I think, given that we're nearly 2 hours and 20 minutes and my voice is getting sore, I think that would be a really good time to slowly start wrapping it up. But yeah, I'll explain once again, if anyone missed it from the stream earlier, what I was talking about before, what I announced. I say with a cringe, as if anyone minds. But what I proclaimed. And if anyone has any questions, by the way, now's the time. I'm going to probably wrap up in about 10 minutes or so. Probably less, actually. Because it won't take me that long to explain this. But for those who missed it, performance check on Twitch. I'm going to try and make sure that I regularly stream here. And I'm going to try and make sure that, one, I continue telling this tale. I've had a really good time just chatting about this campaign. And who knows, I'll probably chat about other campaigns as well at some point. I do intend to release the notes that I'm making of the current campaign that our home group is enjoying, Genesis of the Abyss, expertly DM'd by Michael. And then, yeah, we're also going to be playing D&D on this Twitch channel, and we're going to be streaming our Roll20 games, and I'm really, really excited for it. It's going to be an absolute blast. I absolutely adore playing Dungeons & Dragons with my nearest and dearest. We have a wicked time, and it's time that we shared that with the world. It's going to be really fun. But yeah, I don't think anyone has any questions, so I think I'm just going to scoot. Have another drink first. My throat is dead. No, you know what? I think I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it. So, to those of you who have been here live, I really, really appreciate it. I really appreciate you coming out and listening and tolerating. It does mean a lot. I know that there are some people that have watched my stuff on Performance Check on YouTube from the very beginning. Even though I vanish frequently and often, they're always there, ready and willing to just enjoy whatever I put out there. And yeah, I just want to express how grateful I am for that. And you know who you are. So thanks. And thank you for joining me here. Please consider following me here as well. Not just for my sake, but for the sake of the wonderful players who I will be introducing when we debut our game, our next game on Roll20 on Twitch. It's going to be epic. It really is going to be something special. And as I get more details together, when we confirm the name, when we confirm how we're going to be doing it, I'll be sure to put that out there and let people know. So please feel free to, as I said, follow me here. Check out Performance Check on YouTube. I also have an Instagram called Perform Check. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, other than be really annoyed that Performance Check was taken. But if you want to follow me there, by all means. But yeah, I'm really excited about the future. Very excited about the future. In general. But also excited for the future of Performance Check on Twitch. So that leaves me nothing else to say but this. Thank you ever so much for watching. I very much appreciate it. And I hope that all of your performances are up to standard. I messed it up. How can I mess that up? All of your performances are up to standard. It's just a wink. I don't do that. Thanks for watching. Take care. Speak soon.